But first, my thoughts at the end of day 39, America in shutdown. Exactly 3 weeks ago, it seems like an eternity ago, but in the early stages of the lockdown, I gave this warning. We just all have to remember, a crisis has to be dealt with. We want to protect people and save lives, and we have our civil liberties, our Constitution to also preserve. And after 9/11, we did a heck of a lot of stuff that in the moment felt really good. But then later on, years later, comes the waste, fraud, and abuse. We're seeing some of those things creep in during this COVID crisis as well. Well, in the weeks since, we've seen a lot of COVID-19 mission creep. Somehow flattening the curve ended up flattening our civil liberties as well. Virginia used the emergency as cover to ram through more anti-gun measures. Michigan and Kentucky, they cracked down on worshipers even when they were social distancing. And California, well, they're funneling money to illegal immigrants. But there's a new threat to our rights on the horizon, and it's being pushed by the second wealthiest man in the world. Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation, well, they spend hundreds of millions of dollars on research projects around the world. They do a lot of good. And now it's the largest active funder of the World Health Organization as well, despite the WHO's recent COVID failures and coziness with China. Now, according to Gates, the only way to responsibly end the shutdowns and stay-at-home orders is for a pretty vast surveillance system to be put in place. Writing in the Washington Post, the United States can follow Germany's example, interview everyone who tests positive, and use a database to make sure someone follows up with all their contacts. Well, of course, he insists this will all be voluntary. You choose whether you download the digital tools onto your cell phone. He notes that some people have proposed allowing phones to detect other phones that are near them by using Bluetooth and emitting sounds that humans can't hear. And if someone tested positive, their phone would send a message to other phones, and their owners could, go get tested. Well, how this information would be stored, whether it would be stored, and to whom it would be accessible, I mean, it's anyone's guess. We don't know any of this yet. Well, in a perfect world, perhaps this would all work seamlessly, with no abuses and no misuse of our medical data. But there are profound questions involved here, including the damage that would be done to America if we really can't even open this up until an army, as they call it, of tracers and technology was put in place. Is any of this even feasible? Now, one would think that given all the issues floating out there, that journalists would have at least a few questions, some curiosity about how any Gates-approved tracing and digital tracking system, whatever you want to call it, how it would all be implemented. Well, not so much curiosity.
If ramped up testing will be crucial for reopening our economy, so will something called contact tracing.
Contact tracing is the good old-fashioned detective work, long part of smart public health planning.
It's absolutely critical to stopping new infections.
Well, the Ingram angle is asking some hard questions here. It all sounds fine on the surface. Remember after the 9/11, everything seemed fine. The Patriot Act, new Homeland Security Department, ramp up, surges. It all seemed perfectly reasonable. Years later, we found out some of that stuff wasn't. Well, sometimes we have to ask uncomfortable questions because we know that there aren't too many in the media who actually will. A few months ago, we were all terrified by models that told us millions of people could die of the coronavirus in the United States, or at least hundreds of thousands. Well, fear is a really powerful tool. And is it really true now, as some in the medical establishment are arguing, that it will be unsafe to work or to travel or go to church or a ball game unless we give up our personal data? Well, I haven't seen the scientific proof for any of that. That's a big leap. Well, finally, China boldly predicted today that it could have a COVID vaccine ready by early 2021. What a neat trick. China creates a global catastrophe and then swoops in for the vaccine rescue. I'm sure it will all be totally free, won't cost us anything, and completely safe. But remember, the pro-China elites in the press, they see China as an example to emulate, never really a threat to our freedom and security. After all, we don't even have vaccine factories.
We even got to start building them. or look to countries that might make it for us. And one of those countries might include China. And if the president keeps calling it the Chinese virus and insulting the Chinese, he might have a really hard time getting Xi Jinping and his government to be friendly to the United States, or he may extract something from Donald Trump, in return that Donald Trump isn't going to want to pay him, like, an apology and some respect.
Some respect to our Chinese overlords? Bill Gates, has some respect for China, maybe even in spades.
China took the situation in Wuhan, and by extreme interventions in terms of reducing movement, they were able to crush that epidemic.
Now that China's mostly back at work, some of the critical supplies, having China participate in providing those, could make a huge difference.
Hey, Bill, China locked people in their apartments, essentially. Scientists disappeared. People were terrorized and terrified. We don't even know what happened in Wuhan, but it's all like, maybe a little extreme. They still haven't given us key data about the virus. How it started, who really was patient zero, the way it started, the origins, the full research on therapies, patient records. Well, they've made a huge difference, as he said. Yeah, they've made a huge difference. We've lost 50,000 Americans and trillions in wealth. And those are my thoughts at the end of day 39, America in shutdown.
Thanks for watching.
Like a diamond in the sky, Look at the lobby, I get the party jumping, lovers are falling, something, someone lit with a 40 grip, rocking, and we gon' roll from the floor to the top. No, stop until it's sunny, pass the Dasani bottle, fill it with the Bacardi, go chillin' with the cardio, up like a baldy.